a Pete Primeau fan.
Thank you for having me.
Your fans are like,
what an honor to be here, Pete. You're a legend. You're a rock star.
I'm a legend in my own mind, said my wife.
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
I'm Mr. Selling from the Heart. What's this guy, Larry Levine, going to teach me about selling from the heart?
You are one of the most generous and authentic people around. And I think that's why you and your show are so attractive to people.
Welcome to the Pete Primeau Show. It is episode 257. We are here with my friend Mike Root from a rep's perspective, and this is going to be one of the best shows ever. Not to put any pressure on poor Mike, but let's pay the bills first, and then let's come back and get this show started. If you guys have not bought my book, Sell a Million, what are you waiting for? It wasn't the best traffic year ever, so grab this book. I think it's like $15 or less on Amazon. 101 tips on how to sell another $1 million or more of furniture and mattresses. Best compliment I ever got was from my friend Doug Stewart, who said, just take the word furniture or mattresses out of the book, and it's a great business and marketing book. So that's what that book is all about. This book is about selling. This is sales. And what you have here in this Miles and Miles of Retail Selling Greatness, you don't just get Pete Primeau, you get 10 other great authors. You get Jeff Giannakovo, you get Scott Vaughn, you get Mark Klingenberg, Randy Thompson, Steve Carnes, Brent Batterman, Chris Tahaney, Keith Castanguy, Mel Opp, and last but not least, Justin Trumbo. Guys, you've got 3 years of 15 to 20-minute sales meetings. So if you have to do a sales meeting every Saturday, this is the book for you. Grab it on Amazon and let me know how you like it. If you guys have any questions about either one of my books, call me at 419-560-3169. And I'd like you guys to listen up. One of the strategies that a lot of retailers use that they don't really talk about, it's almost like this little secret. They make their sales pros stars. They feature their sales pros in their ads, especially on social media. So there's a sales pro that works for you probably who's done something extraordinary, or he or she has gotten extraordinary results for a customer of theirs because they went the extra mile for that customer. We want that RSA story to be told. And the way to tell it is to get a hold of my friend, Chris Tahaney. Chris Tahaney and Brent Batterman are really doing a special project. It's all about elevating our industry. It's about your sales pro at retail, what they've done to change a customer's life, and how your stores and their products have changed a retail customer's life. All you got to do is send those stories to mattressrsastories@gmail.com. And listen to me very carefully. You don't have to be the world's greatest author. You don't have to be a great writer. Chris Tahaney is probably one of the most talented writers I've ever met in my life. And I've been doing this. It'll be 44 years in January, just in a few days. So, guys, jump on board with this. This is really, really Jordan Vaughn says, good looking shirt, my friend. Always looking good. Hey, it's Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. And happy Hanukkah to my Jewish friends. So getting back, so this goes back to Squirrel, which is the inside joke for all the regulars on here. Anything that my producer Chris puts up on the board, I will read it. It doesn't matter what it is. So, guys, get on board with this mattress sales pros. Get their stories out there. You know, you might have a sales pro who's doing really special things, but he or she they're just too humble. They're just too sweet. They're not gonna submit to Chris. You do it for them as a store owner. You help them become the star that they already are. And the only thing that we ask, just send a picture that we can include in this ebook. And what this is going to do is we're going to share our success stories, how we're changing lives for the better, and the whole industry is going to get lifted up. So please, 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 with sugar on top, join us in elevating the industry. And without further ado, Mike Root, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So,
appreciate you having me,
Mike. There's so much I want to talk to you about. I don't know. Well, I think I know where I want to start. This is where I want to start. I don't know if it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't know when it was. It was a long time ago. You were writing articles for Furniture Today, and I reached out to you, and and I couldn't believe it. You actually responded. And then next thing I know, I was on a phone call with you. I think we've had a few phone calls over the years, and you emailed me copies of your newsletters that you were sending out to your customers. And so, you know, sometimes I'll get compliments about a newsletter that I sent to my customers, and I kind of done it off and on, nowhere near the consistency that you've had for years, Mike. But you've always been someone who's committed to elevating this industry, committed to sharing the things. You know, I know where you learned that newsletter strategy from. I know exactly. And I know that you paid a lot of money to get it. So thank you for always being so unselfish and for always investing in yourself and in your company, and then giving back to the industry. I think that's the biggest part that I really want to thank you for.
Sure. Well, on the newsletter point, if I may jump in, I was thinking
Sure.
about being with you today and what I could maybe talk to your audience about. And newsletter fell to the top of the list. And let me tell you why. If you aren't doing a newsletter for your customer, whether you're a rep like myself or whether you're a retailer or bedding store, whatever it is, if you aren't doing a newsletter and it has to be consistent, then you're missing the boat. I taught my brother, who's in the sign business, I taught him this. He was in the sign business and he just exited after building a significant business because he communicated with his customers every month. And the newsletter is about imparting information. It doesn't have to be about selling something. My first newsletters were about selling something. And when I turned it into creating value for the end user, it took a totally different turn as far as our business went, to the point that we've been able to position ourselves very, very nicely in our little niche. So I would recommend that as the top takeaway I would have for your audience is you and I met through this. Maybe you got to know me through that, and we've known each other for a long time. And I think that's just the case with a lot of my customers too. I may not go into them anymore, but they know me if I call. So that's one tip for you.
Consistency is the key. Thank you for clearing out my sinuses this morning. As I was getting into the book, I was crying, and I did not understand the kind of health challenges that you faced over the last couple years. Michael Whipfler, a newsletter is a great idea for an RSA. Yes. You could do them for your RSAs too. I've never even thought about that, Michael. That's a great idea.
We're actually building one for a certain level of a certain customer that's a large chain. We're building a newsletter for them to give to their RSAs right now. So it's an important strategy for everybody.
That's a great strategy. So if you only read one letter, one chapter, this is it. And I'm just gonna shoot the quote out there. I know a lot of very selfish people, but I don't know any selfish people who are happy. Happiness is not an end or even an experience. Happiness is a byproduct. Happiness is not achieved by pursuit of happiness, but rather by living right. Matthew Kelly, Imperfectly Yourself. So,
you want to know the backstory?
tell me.
The book that you're referencing right here from a sales rep's perspective, I actually wrote and finished it in 2024. What I did was I took all my Furniture Day articles along with my newsletter articles, and you're right, it's been 2008 is about when I started this whole journey, so it's been a little over 15 years. And so I took all of that and put it actually into an AI engine to sort it, to basically create chapters for me. And so that's how I came up with my book. And so I was ready to launch this, and then I got really sick at the end of last year. This time last year, I was having trouble eating, and through March, I ended up losing about 35 to 40 pounds. And so we figured there was something wrong. Well, come to find out, I had cancer. And I had been traveling a lot. Business, as many in our industry know, has been tough. So I went out on the road and was traveling a lot and calling on a lot of people and trying to spur anything up. But it was too much, I think. And anyway, we got the diagnosis, we got the treatment. Thankfully, I'm cancer-free as of start of September, so that was great. But in that journey from about March, when I figured out my diagnosis, to probably sometime midsummer, did a total shift in my priorities. Instead of working all the time and everything like that, I really stood back, got close to my God, and really spent a lot of time with looking at how great the world is and how many good things there are. You can read the news and hear all the bad things, or you can just use your own eyes and ears and enjoy life. And that's what I was able to do. Did find some authors that spoke to me that way. And so it wasn't the purpose of the book, but I used it as an opportunity to just share. That's probably the most important lesson in the book, is to step back a little bit and realize how great everybody's life on this call is. And we need to acknowledge that. Yes, times are tough for some people from time to time, but it could be a lot worse. We could live in other parts of the world where there's wars ongoing. We could live every place else and not have the benefits that we've gotten. So I've always taken a very positive attitude, but I've also, in the last 6 months to a year, have actually been able to step back, and it's a much more enjoyable experience. I don't get near as worked up about losing a placement on a guy's floor nowadays, because there's so many other things we should be enjoying and happy about than something like that. So it's a different perspective, but it's one I wanted to share with everybody with my book.
It's really evident to me, Mike, that this book is really a thank you to the industry, and you are sharing not only specific tactics, strategies, but also mindset that's so important, because the tactics will change, strategies will even change, but your mindset stuff doesn't ever really change. And when you're about making a positive difference in a retailer's life, good things always happen, for the retailer and for us. And the same goes for a retail store owner. When you're all about making a difference in your customer's life, it doesn't matter if you're selling them furniture or you're selling them mattresses. Um, if they're if they're going to be happier and healthier because of their purchase, then they, they're gonna they're gonna love the place that they bought from, and they're gonna come back again and again. So interesting that you mentioned this early in your book about the Hallow app, which I got turned on to about 2 years ago. And you mentioned one of the authors is Father Mike Schmitz
Right.
that you read. I listen to Father Mike Schmitz every day on the Hallow app, and I've followed him for a few years. So uh, I'm glad that we share that, Mike.
Chris Stefanik is another one you should listen to. It's for men primarily, and he does a really good job. And he's been kind of very interesting too.
Good. I will add that to my list, Mike. You are always given. Speaking of given, 2025 was kind of a tumultuous year for a lot of retailers. It wasn't easy for even the ones that would put it in the quote bucket of, hey, it was a successful year. Was not easy. It was fighting for every inch along the way. What is your advice to retailers out there, Mike? You have a very broad perspective. By the way, guys and gals that are listening to this, I just want to read you a quote from Irv Blumkin in case you guys have been asleep under a rock. If you don't know who that is, that's the chairman of Nebraska Furniture Mart. Mike Root isn't just a sales rep. He's a trusted advisor, a true partner, and a respected leader in our industry. I'm confident that anyone who reads this book will come away with valuable lessons, just as I have over the years working alongside him. That is a great quote, Mike.
Yeah, it really. I've been very fortunate to have some people that I've served over the years, and we've built good relationships with, and we've got a number of good friends in the industry that were able to speak on my behalf, which is great. And it really comes down to being trustworthy, and if you have a good product, in my case, people will look to you, at least consider what you have to offer. In some cases, they're telling me what they're looking for, and they're asking me to go get it. So I've been blessed with that regard. But to your point about how tough the industry has been, you think about it. I think the industry overall, at least for the big guys that I do business with, their sales may be up just a little bit, but in reality, their sales, if you count the number of boxes they're moving, probably is not up, and it's probably down. They're up because of inflation and tariffs and things like that. So if you think about it, the reps that are calling on you, they're probably not experiencing anywhere near what they did the year before, just because of what the industry is. When we get paid on moving boxes and a percentage of it. So it's been a challenging year for everybody across that spectrum. So what I am doing, and I think it would be very applicable to retailers as well, and that is to look for other opportunities. In other words, find other kinds of things. If mattress stores should be looking at massage chairs. If you're able to sell a premium bed, there's no reason why you couldn't sell the health and wellness features that are available in a massage chair, for example. If you're looking at, if you're a traditional furniture store, there's, people look at what people are spending money on. Health and wellness is one thing. Home entertainment is another. So if you aren't in some of those categories, you don't have it devoted to that, it would be certainly something I would consider. Traditional things like bedroom sets, a lot of people, until the housing market changes around, is not probably going to have as robust a period of time, only because you only really change your bedroom sets out when you either remodel or you buy a new house. And if housing isn't great, then it's a little tougher. So you look at maybe taking some of that space and converting it into some things that people would be buying. That would be my recommendation, is just don't do the same thing you've done all the time, because the customer is different. If you don't have an e-com play, you need to be on figuring out how you can be a little more aggressive through Facebook or through a website or whatever you want to do. But I just take a look at your business. We've had to do that in our business, taking on different lines from different times, and it's just, you have to adapt. That's all it is.
When you look at your dealers who are more successful and less successful, what are the things that we should do more of and less of?
Consistency is probably the biggest thing that the ones that are successful are. You mentioned Nebraska Furniture Mart. They're consistent. They're always changing. They're upgrading. I mean, they've got huge footprints. But they're, at different times of the year, they can sell anything from outdoor and lawnmowers to, now they've got that department's in toys, for example. So they've broadened their mix. Not that everybody wants to do that or can do that, but they're consistent insofar as they're looking for what their customer wants, and they're doing, they're acting on that. Where I see some challenges, let's say, and I'm not going to bring up names, but there are people that get in the boat of having the person that gives them the easiest distribution or deliveries or things, and so they buy a lot of things from those companies. And so consequently, a lot of the stores look the same. Their merchandising looks like everybody else's because it's easy to get. And sometimes it takes a little more effort to go out and find some real values in the marketplace, but your customer's looking for that. And if they don't find it in your store because they see the sea of sameness every place they go, then they're going to go to Amazon and find what they want. So the key is to try and figure out why someone would want to go to you, and then deliver on that promise.
Try to be unique. Don't make them go to Amazon. I love that. I know I paraphrase that, but
Yeah,
that is really powerful, Mike.
well, if you knew how many beds they sold in comparison to the whole industry, it's a huge number. I think I saw something like 13 to 15% of the mattresses were sold on Amazon, which just goes to show you that the customer's not getting an excuse as to why they should buy a higher end bed when they go to a store, or the store's not even reaching out to these customers that are looking for a bed. So they don't, the younger customers, they don't think anything different than to go to Amazon or Wayfair, which is a little bit of a fault of a marketing message for our industry, because there's so many better solutions than buying a 7-inch foam mattress on Amazon. And yet the younger generation hadn't ever been trained or told that. And so they're just going to get stuck with what they get stuck with.
Steve, thank you so much for sponsoring my show. You and Greg at Mattress Industry Network sponsor the Primeau show. And I think in my excitement to get Mike on the show a little bit quicker, I forgot to mention you guys. So my apologies and thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. Mike, from a rep's perspective, what do you see as the future of the independent rep? And how do you feel about companies limiting what is in a rep's bag? Well, that's the end of the show, guys, because the show is now going to go for the next 2 to 3 hours.
Well, I actually wrote about it in the book, so if you want to know, but to paraphrase what my life's been about, I believe that a good independent furniture rep is critical to a factory, and let me tell you why. You can't get an entry to some of these accounts, a lot of accounts, without some kind of, reason for them to do that. And a good rep who has the trust of these major retailers and other retailers will get easier access to that. Now, that said, there are good reps and there are reps that aren't quite as good. And so it's critical for those that aren't quite as good to get their game up so that they can be the trusted advisor. But it's also critical for a company to find the right guys that feel good about their product. I get pitched on a regular basis for people wanting me to carry their product, and I'm gratified that that's the case. But it has to be a product that I'm very excited about, because the only way I'm going to be able to sell well is something that I have a real desire to sell, something that I see has got a unique benefit. It can fit my customer base, things like that. So that's where I'm at with when I look to represent something. But if you can find the guy that's passionate about your product, he's going to do wonders for you. The second thing about an independent rep, and this goes to your second question about multi-line bag versus a guy that's focused on just your product. The key is, if you're a big brand name, call it Lazy Boy or whatever, the customer is going to find you and they're going to want you because you got the brand name. But if you're not a brand name, it's going to be tougher for you to get your product placed in a retailer store, because it's going to have to they've got so many options that are coming at it. All your competitors are calling on the same guy's store. So a good rep, a multi-line rep who's already in the store with another product, has the confidence of that trusted retailer, they'll be able to at least get you an audience a lot quicker than you doing it by yourself. In the book, I talked about a couple companies. I won't name their names, but it happened about a year and a half ago or so when I was starting to write the book. And they fired all their sales reps, and then they went to an in-house sales team. And what happened was, within about a 12-month to 18-month period, one of them particularly went out of business as that entity. They ended up getting sold off. But I do believe it was because they lost their independent reps, and they thought it would be cheaper without them. And I think that was a mistake on their part. That's just my personal bias, but and there was another one that something very similar happened. Every time I've seen people take them in-house, it's almost as bad as if a venture money comes in and buys a company. You can pretty much count that it's going to be a demise of them at some point down the road.
Steve, thanks. I will buy the book if you'll be in Las Vegas and sign it for me.
We're going to have a signing. I don't know exact date, but we'll send it through IFRA. We will have a book signing in Vegas market, so that's not a problem.
Buy the book, Steve. It's a great book. Trust me when I tell you. Matthew O'Brien, I love it. I'm definitely going to be doing a monthly newsletter for my customers now. That's great, Matthew. I'm so glad to hear that. Are you going to make Justin do it for you, or are you going to do it yourself? That's my question.
Matthew, let me tell you a couple things that'll be successful in a newsletter. First of all, if you can move yourself from doing it from a quarterly basis or every once in a while when I feel like it basis to doing it on a consistent monthly basis, your customers will start to look forward to it and expect it. So as long as the content's good. If you can go about giving them content, in my case, I give them a lot of information that my reflections on it. And what I do, the way I build it is I read a lot and I save those articles, and then at the each month I look at the articles and come up with a theme, and I put those articles together in my own words and what I learned from them, but to share with my customers. And that's how my newsletter is built. I also make sure there's jokes in there, and we always have a dog that is the mascot for our letter, and people talk more about the dog and the jokes than they do about what I write. But at the same time, if they're talking about us, that's all we care.
That's awesome. Mike, some things are changing and some things are staying the same. Oh, Gordon, I know that you are out shopping, so thank you for, we must be on your iPhone or your Android. Gordon Hecht asks, in my retail days, my best-selling brand was the one with the most frequent visits from the rep. Yes, frequency is a real thing. And there's a lot of different ways to get frequency these days. It doesn't always have to be belly to belly. It could be a text. It could be a drop in belly to belly. It could be a newsletter. It could be a lot of different ways to touch people. What say you, Mike?
Well, I would agree. I mean, my business as a rep is a little bit different because I have a huge territory. My main gig, I guess, at this point is cozy massage chairs, and that requires at least quarterly to show up and do training because it's a complex product, and we want to make sure there's always new salespeople on the floor. There's always new things that everybody can learn with that. So that gets us out of the office and into the stores, certainly. So I believe that that's important. As I mentioned to you earlier, we're looking at creating a newsletter for RSAs because it's important to sell the buyer and get it placed on a floor for me, but it's more important for that product to sell through to the end consumer. And if I just get it placed on the floor and I don't tell anyone what it is or what it's doing, then shame on me if the thing doesn't produce and they end up replacing it with something else within a couple months. So it's really important, I think, as a rep, it's really important to make sure the RSAs know what's going on as well as the buyers.
Mike, you've been preaching this for years. It's not just about placing a product. It's about the follow through. It's about the training. It's about helping that item gain velocity at the retailer in the sell through, because placing product does nothing for anybody. The velocity that sells through and the reorders, that's where the rubber meets the road in our industry on all sides of it, whether it's the retailer looking at it or it's us or our bosses who, usually a VP of sales at a manufacturer, how they're going to look at it. So, some things are changing and there's more tools available maybe than ever. But there's one thing that you really anchored this book on, and that was relationships.
Yes.
Now, that's not going to change.
Correct.
The rep with the best relationship, the most meaningful relationship, is the rep who eventually wins. What say you, Mike?
Well, I think, I know what my strategy is, and I know how we present people. We look at, we get paid by the factories, but, we basically work for the retailer. And so if I don't have the right product for them, I'm not going to take it to them. I mean, the factories may not like that, but there's going to be another guy in town that is better suited for it or whatever. Certainly we present what we can to everybody, but at the other, if they give me a good reason why, then we just have to move on. But to your point about relationships, I think we've become trusted because we're willing to walk away from something that isn't a fit. And I think that's something that some guys don't get. They just have one thing, and that's their chief motivating thing is they're told by management or whatever that they need to sell this into the system no matter what. And it may not be a good solution, which is fine. I mean, they're going to get that initial sale, but long term, what's that really do for the the end user, and what does it really do for the retailer if he's stuck with a bunch of product that's not going to work for him? So I think it's important that you know who your customer is, and you know what whether you're the retailer or whether you're a manufacturer's rep like myself or a factory, you know who the retailer is, what they are capable of selling, and then provide them the right solution for what their customer wants.
Mike, when I started my journey with Dan Kennedy and his various companies that he started, and I met you through that. I met Jeff Giannakovo through that. What kind of led you to that place where you decided to look outside the industry for information to become more of an expert on marketing? Because I think that's really one of the big separators between you and so many other reps. I mean, you literally could run the business for the retailer. If they gave you the keys and said, Mike, run with it, you could do that. Most reps can't do that, especially the company reps that have only ever seen a small sliver of, and quite frankly, Mike, what drew me to my going towards Kennedy was, what if everything Bob and Barb and Jeff had told me at CERTA wasn't true? The only thing I know about advertising and marketing is what they taught me. And what if it wasn't? Now, what I learned is that Bob, Barb, and Jeff taught me well, but they didn't teach me completely. And I rounded a lot of that out through Dan Kennedy and his various companies, and also through my interaction with you and Jeff Giannakovo, who have already beat me to applying it to our industry.
Well, Jeff was, I think he found that world through me, and then I've got him hooked up with another mutual friend that he's partnered with multiple times. So I know Jeff very well, and he's very proud of him. Matter of fact, I wrote about him in my book, not by name, but he's listed in one of my stories in there. But I'm a reformed retailer myself. I was about 10 years in the furniture business, selling retail in Omaha, Nebraska, of all places, competing against Nebraska Furniture Mart. Started a young family and decided that wasn't for me. But at one time I had about 100 employees. I was the second largest furniture retailer in the marketplace. And I just decided that really it wasn't my calling, and looked around to a variety of different businesses and ended up coming back to furniture as a furniture representative, starting with virtually nothing and building up from there. But someplace along that line, it was probably around 2008 when the market was pretty tough. And my business actually picked up because I was applying some of these principles, and I had a kinship, I think, a little bit with Bill Glazer because he was a formal menswear retailer. And so that's kind of how I think I found him. It wasn't Dan Kennedy. That was a second happenstance. But Bill Glazer is who I discovered and then followed him. And I really dove into it for probably 5 or 6 years and spent a lot of money with him learning it. but it's like everything, the law of unintended consequences. It's led me in a lot of different directions and helped me build my business, even though I wasn't sure what it was going to do for me. It really was beneficial by investing in more than sales, by investing in marketing and understanding how to move product, not just trying to sell something, but how to position it and things like that. So it was a good journey.
Yeah, it's that whole thing. I think if I ever retire, I would like to write a book on marketing that is like shows all these trees of marketers that came off of each other. It's fascinating. But Bill, and this, Bill was one of Dan Kennedy's students,
Correct.
and he was so good at it that he brought him in as a business partner. And a lot of people that know Dan very well, respect him immensely, will testify that if it wasn't for Bill, Dan could never have built that particular business as big as it was.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah.
Because Bill was the personality. I mean, Dan didn't want to talk to anybody.
Bill was the glue. He had the organization, and I mean, Dan's got the experience and the wisdom and things on marketing, but Bill was much better operator, in my opinion, just by being able to put it together. And now Dan's got Russell Brunson working, keeping it together. So yeah, good organization.
So probably the best course I ever got from those guys was Bill's course on newsletter marketing. So that's one for you, Steve Hauk. Get Bill Glazer's course on newsletters. It was really, really well done. So if you're talking to a young rep right now, and he or she's out there, busting it out, doing the best they can, and they're not really having the kind of success that they want, what's the one thing they need to shift in their thinking that would be the most beneficial for them?
Well, there's a couple ways to look at this. Depending on what their work attitudes are, let's assume that they're doing what they're told to do, which is, making calls and seeing who they can ratchet up. Persistence is very important. Even with my years of experience in relationships, it could take 5, 7, 10 different emails, voicemails, etc. The retail buyer is incredibly difficult to reach these days because they have everybody and their brother trying to reach them. So you have to have a compelling story and a compelling reason and a compelling product. If your product's not compelling, it's going to be very difficult. I don't care how hard you work to get it placed with volume. So one thing I'd look at is I'd make sure that the product's good. I'd make sure that the list you're going after is good. That's the message to market match that those guys always taught us, right?
Yep,
So we
yep.
make sure that we've got the right message to the right market and we match it up. And as long as that's all in place, then I would just say it's going to have to be persistence. And this last year or two, we've talked about it already, but this last year or two, and I just visited with Herb Blumkin this last week, and he politely agreed that basically this has been some of the toughest times for our industry that anyone has ever come across. And it's I think we're at the low point personally. I really do. I think we're going to start seeing a rebound in the next year or so, but it's been really tough. So if you can hang in there now, there will be a boom again in the furniture business, and you'll be well positioned for it. but it takes time. It's time and persistence. And if you don't have the right product, go find something that is good, and start working on it, because there is business out there.
Yeah.
They used to say there's dollars moving every day. You just got to make sure some of them are moving your way, and figure out how to. If they aren't, then you got to figure out how they can be.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Chris Dehaney. Hi, Mike. In 60 years of success and everything you've done in your legendary career, where does publishing a book rank amongst all your accomplishments?
Well, it was on my bucket list. So let's put it that way. That was a start. My greatest accomplishment is marrying my wife, Nancy, having 2 great kids, and now I have 6 grandkids. That brings me the greatest joy of anything. So I would say there's nothing that's going to come close to that. Of course, my outlook on life, I've got a very close family from brothers. We just were all hanging out together over this last week. My mother's still alive, wonderful woman. My dad was a great inspiration to me. I dedicated the book to him. Taught me an awful lot. So those are the most important things for me. Book's great, but it's just what was in the rearview mirror that I wanted to share. I think greater things are even are ahead. They always are, in my opinion. There's always something bigger and better that we can accomplish, and that's what I continue to work for.
One of my favorite articles that you ever wrote, Mike, was the one on upgrading your bag. Manufacturers will often take a sales rep and dismiss them after they've had success and they built a territory, and they'll just say, I'm upgrading. And it's like, okay, well, 2 can play that game. I'm upgrading my bag. I'm sorry you didn't make the cut. Your deliveries weren't as good as they should have been, blah, 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 whatever. But it's a mindset shift that you were really asking us as reps to make. And one of the things that is throughout all of your everything that you've ever written, Mike, and everything that you've ever said to me in our phone calls, is you're constantly exhorting us to become the best that we can become, to really give the best service and to be the best that we can for our retailers. So again, Mike, thank you.
Well, on the upgrading the bag, I see guys that carry high end going into decorators, and I see guys carrying low end because they've been able to gather these lines together, and so they think that having all of this is important. When I shouldn't say fired, but when I decided I wasn't going to work with a whole series of customers, and I ended up hiring some associates to work them, and I focused on my top guys and became an expert on those accounts, my business increased because I had more time to spend with them. I could find out what their needs were better, and I could help them better. And so I think it's really important, if you're a rep on this call, or even if you're someone carrying a variety of different products and some of the categories aren't working for you, it might be just looking at, well, who is my customer? What do they need? And how can I give them the best product and offerings for that? Whether you're a rep, that means maybe you eliminate a couple lines because it doesn't fit the customer base. You either be all in on decorators, you be all in on, like myself, large accounts, or you be all in on going up and down the road, whatever it is. If you're a bedding supplier, a mattress company, whatever, then you be all in on a certain category of beds. You got to move them up, but maybe you don't. You don't compete with Amazon. You figure out, like Jeff has done very well, you figure out how to become the premium supplier, but meeting customers' needs. I think that's really important for anybody in any business, is to determine who your customer is and bring them the best value and service that you can for that particular customer.
Well said, Mike. It's as if you've gone through that a few thousand times before. So, you know, what are some other resources that you could point us towards that have been valuable for you over the years? You know, in your book, you talk about the importance of mentors. And, you know, I gave you a little bit of a chuckle in the green room when I said, you know, Mike, you know, you may not believe this, but
Right.
you're one of my mentors.
Well,
And you kind of looked at me like, well, tell me about that. And I remember like it was yesterday, and it was probably one of, you know, 100,000 phone calls that you get. But you took the time to not only coach me up on what a newsletter should like, then you sent a follow-up email. You sent me copy after copy of newsletters that you've sent. So um, I think that for us to leave this industry better off than we found it, we have to be committed to mentorship. We just have to be.
absolutely. Yeah. And I wrote about two mentors in my book. Um, I won't I won't ruin the surprise. One of them was my father, who actually, I didn't write about this in the book, but he suffered with cancer in his last days, and I saw how well he treated everybody, the nurses and everything. I saw other people that were woe is me, and it was awful, and I understand that theory too. But when I went through my cancer prognosis and treatment, I decided that I was going to be taking my greatest mentor and channeling what he did, which was being nice to everybody, being upbeat about it. And thankfully, I was able to survive, but I got through it in a much better way. Um, my other one of the stories I tell is about John St. John, who was a master storyteller, and so I would recommend his one of his stories just changed my life, because it was just in a sales meeting, but I took it to heart. So mentors can be found every place, whether it be in life or in business, and you just got to be open to it. Um, I don't want to digress too much, but one of the things that Matthew Kelly said in one of his books, we referenced him earlier, was people are upset with the Catholic Church from time to time because of the mass is boring or whatever, and these evangelical churches are coming up, and I'm not trying to talk religion on this, but one of the things he told me was, you know, go in with a journal and look for one thing in the service that you're looking for, which I now do. And on my phone, every time I have made a reference to something, and then I go back and review it. It's kind of like taking notes in a class, but it did a whole bunch of cool stuff for me personally on that. So you can find mentors everywhere. You just have to be open to it, and you just have to be aware of what you need mentoring on.
Jeff Janakovo,
There he is.
the man, the myth, the legend. Two amazing greats coming together to serve the industry on the show. Love it. Just tuned in. We are deep in finalizing our plans for 2026. Thanks, Jeff. You've been, we brought your name up and talked about you. It was all good. But if you're curious, just hit the replay button. Thanks, Jeff. We appreciate you. RJ. RJ, thank you for surviving this weekend. A great mentor is invaluable. I'm lucky to have some of the very best in the world. Yes, you are very lucky to have Scott Vaughn and Jeff Janakovo as your mentors. Thank you, RJ. You are too kind, my friend. All right. We have come to the place where I get to ask you a question. Was there, Mike, a question I should have asked you about your book, or about the furniture business, or about 2026 that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Well, I'm kind of surprised you didn't ask about AI, but that's fine. I will just say briefly that I'd mentioned that I use the AI to help organize my thoughts. I now use it to clean up pictures from factories, and I'm using it more and more. So I think that's going to be a big deal for people. And you really shouldn't be scared of AI, but you really should be figuring out how it can make you more productive. The people that are willing to invest the time and effort into AI, and I by no means am an expert on it, but it can make you better. So I think that's probably one of the things that I would suggest that everybody can benefit from. It's not perfect, but um, I think it'll make your job a little bit easier. So if that makes sense, that would be one thing I would think. Um, and if I could leave you with a couple thoughts, and it's not necessarily what you asked for, but just a couple thoughts to end up with, and that is, I really always try to look at improving myself no matter what. And I think that takes the form of a couple different things. One is exercise, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I think it's very important. Those three aspects should be aligned. And I also think that it's very important to be passionate about what you do. I was not passionate about being a retailer, maybe because I had small kids at the time, but I wasn't passionate about it, and I got out and I found some things that I liked better, and I'm passionate about it, and I think that helps me do a good job. But if you don't like what you're doing, then I think it's a little tougher to do a good job at it. And that might be my suggestion for 2026 New Year's resolutions is figure out what you like, get into something you're passionate about, and good things will happen.
That's great advice. I talk about that constantly on my show. Exercise. Listen, you don't have to do CrossFit like I do, like I'm a maniac. And you don't have to do like Jenny had some AFib in March and she's walked, I think, like 600 miles now.
Oh, congrats.
So
That's
she's
great.
become an avid hiker. And she's going to suck me into it as soon as I probably get my second set of knees. But um, exercising is incredible for not only your mental well-being, but also spiritually. It puts you back in touch, and that's a
Right.
great time to say a prayer. And whatever it is that you believe in, um, there's nothing more important than your soul. I mean, all this other stuff, it's going bye-bye.
Right.
So focus on what really matters. And, Mike, you said something that really touched me very deeply. And, when you see the question, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? Or what would you tell your 28-year-old self? I would say, don't sweat every little thing so much. It's really not that big of a deal. Um, you're going to be more successful than you ever thought you could be, and you're going to impact more people's lives. Just focus in on one life at a time. And I think that's so important. But I'm glad you touched on this one thing. We don't talk about this enough on our show. Passion.
Mm-hmm.
People can buy what you sell or a version of what you sell from anybody else. It doesn't matter if you're a retailer or a wholesaler. Sooner or later, they're buying you. And one of the biggest parts of what they're buying is your energy, your commitment, your belief in that
Yep.
product.
Yep.
And they need that from you. And don't ever underestimate that. And if you want to close more sales at retail, be more passionate, have more energy, really serve them more. Ask them better, deeper questions. Same thing as a rep, you know? And one of the things I would say really quickly to our younger reps, here's what's killing you. I'm going to tell you right now what's killing you. What's killing you is you're waiting for 20 years from now when you have gray hairs like me and you can be the old wise one. Well, guess what? When you get to be as old as me, I'm 65 now, you realize you don't know anything and you're never going to know anything. And the reality is, a lot of people think you're an expert now. It's all relative. Here's what I would say to you. If you're younger and you're a rep and you have a nice relationship with a retailer, ask them if you could just sit at their feet and ask them questions. Just teach me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I know what my company, the biggest and most breakthrough moments of my life were when I looked at one of my retailers and I said, all I know is what they're telling me. Tell me what I really need to know. And
Right.
I was there for 3 hours. And I went from being a rep to a son. Think about that. Think about that. And then I started to repeat it. Every retailer who seemed like they knew what they were doing, I would ask a version of that question. And they taught me everything I needed to know about being a retailer. I was never a retailer. I was in retail for 9 years. I sold on the floor. I managed stores. I had a lot of success in retail, but really it was limited. So have fun with this business, guys. The one thing that I've gotten from Mike all these years, passion, energy, a commitment to excellence, professionalism, reaching out beyond the industry to increase his education, to be a resource to his dealers so that his dealers don't get just him. They get all of his experience. And that is something you can't put a price on. And so
Thank you for that.
I would like to say thank you, Mike. I know you're a super busy guy.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And every time we have an opportunity to maybe make a difference for somebody, I'm always happy to be part of that.
That's awesome. Mike, thank you so much. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that? What's the best way?
Mike at fsma63.com, or my existing email is mike at furnituresales.biz, B-I-Z.
Awesome.
And I'm also on LinkedIn, so look me up there. And I'm always communicating with people there, and we'll just transfer over to email after that.
Mike, thank you so much. Merry Christmas, brother.
Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for having me.
No,
Appreciate
the pleasure was mine. And I only went 2 minutes over. I threatened to go 2 hours over, so Chris is relieved.
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
Yeah, Matt. Have a great week. Bye now.
You too. Bye-bye.